Greetings. There comes a time in life when one must confront the possibility that maybe instant noodles, protein shakes, energy drinks, and kettle chips do not constitute a balanced diet. Maybe. And that time is now. For me. Usually the winter is a gnarly time for my mental health, and I get pretty bad at feeding myself in a way that makes me feel good. If you're in that boat, I see you, I love you, keep trying your best. My boyfriend Eric and I have been back in the gym consistently since the start of the new year, and I have been so motivated to get good nutrition so I can get stronger. And to that end, I have been meal prepping some simple high-protein lunches for both of us once or twice a week just to help save time and money and make it easier for us to eat better. Today I'm going to share a few of our go-to meal prep combos so far. Okay, so my general formula for meal prep is to always include one protein source, one vegetable, and then a good source of carbs, so either a type of grain or pasta or a starchy vegetable like potatoes. For our first meal prep combo, our protein source is going to be a combination of tofu and tempeh. So I got a block of extra firm tofu. I'm draining it and then popping it in my fun new tofu press. This is the Future tofu press. I got this recently after I saw Francesca from Plantifully Based using it. It works great. I love it. It really only needs about 15 minutes to press out quite a bit of water. And in the meantime, I'm going to get some rice started. Just regular white rice. Neither of us likes brown rice. Believe me, I have tried to love it, but white rice is just life. What can you do about it? And I use a rice cooker, not to be dramatic, but I don't know how people live without one of these. It cost me like 20 bucks years ago. We use it probably 3 to 4 times a week, and it's just great. So like I mentioned, we're gonna do both tofu and tempeh for this particular meal prep. If you're not familiar with tempeh, it's also made of soybeans like tofu, but it's whole soybeans, so it's even higher in protein. I happen to love this stuff. I will say it's fermented. It does have a slightly bitter flavor as is, so it's maybe an acquired taste. One thing I like to do to remove some of that bitterness is to steam it, and I do that just by adding it to a pan with a little bit of water, bringing it up to a simmer, and then covering it to let it steam for about 5 to 7 minutes. Then I just remove the lid and I let the extra water cook off. By now my tofu's pressed pretty well, and I've gone ahead and cut it into cubes, and I add it into the pan right alongside the tempeh. I'm also drizzling in a little bit of avocado oil. It's optional, but I just like to add some to help brown my tofu and tempeh. And you can just let this cook on medium or medium-high heat. Give it a little toss or a flip every few minutes until everything's a nice golden brown. Then once you have that color on the tofu, you can reduce the heat to low and add in your favorite sauce. And the sauce will kind of thicken and form almost like a glaze for your tofu. This is actually one of my favorite ways to cook tofu. It's so easy. I picked up this pineapple teriyaki sauce. It really grabbed my eye because it reminded me that I used to love the Trader Joe's Island soyaki sauce. And we don't really live that close to a Trader Joe's anymore. Plus we're kind of lazy and we don't like driving too far. So it's been a long time since I had it. But you just want to keep stir frying that until the sauce is thickened and there's no extra liquid in the pan. Then the last thing is that I like to include some kind of green or other non-starchy vegetable in each of my meal preps. For the teriyaki and rice combo, our favorite veggie is usually either broccoli or green beans, and we just usually steam them. I don't do any sort of elaborate stir fry or seasoning. I just like to keep things simple here. Also, since these meals are usually in the fridge or the freezer for a day or two, you want vegetables that hold up well to cooking and reheating. So for example, I don't like to add in anything that's gonna release a lot of extra moisture in the fridge. For example, sauteed spinach as leftovers tends to get really soggy, whereas broccoli holds up really well to reheating. I just undercook it a tiny bit so that it's perfectly cooked once we reheat it in the microwave. So now all of our components are ready, and seriously, this took almost no time at all, maybe a total of a half an hour, and we made enough for 5 servings this time around. And now all that's left is the fun part, in my opinion, which is to portion everything out into our cute little containers. We got these glass meal prep containers like 6 years ago, I want to say. They've held up very well. They get so much use. And if you are going to make a habit of meal prep, I would say it's worth it to invest in some good containers like this. I have used the black plastic containers that you see in a lot of meal prep videos, but they're just not very sturdy. They tend to warp or crack if you use them in the dishwasher or the microwave. And I also don't love microwaving stuff in plastic, but that's just my personal preference. I also added in about half a serving of edamame into each container just to boost the protein content, and I added on some fresh scallions for a touch of extra flavor. Pausing to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video. If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know I love Ritual. I take their Women's Daily Multivitamin, and I have since 2018. Recently, I got Eric on board, and he's been taking their Men's Daily Multivitamin and loves it. But recently, Ritual came out with a new product called Synbiotic Plus, and it's a 3-in-1 prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic, and it just supports digestion, gut health, and immunity. Just like their multivitamin, it comes in a nice minty capsule. It doesn't require refrigeration, so I just keep it right next to my multivitamin, take them both at the same time so I don't forget. It comes straight to your door every month with free shipping, so you never run out. And one thing I love about Ritual and always have is how transparent they are about the quality of their ingredients, where they're sourced from. These two products are vegan friendly, of course. They're free of gluten and other major allergens, as well as GMOs, and they're third-party tested. If you are interested in giving Ritual a try, either their multivitamin or their Synbiotic Plus, or both, they are now offering 20% off your first month. You can visit ritual.com/SVK-20 and use the code SVK-20 at checkout. I'll have that down below. And now let's get back into the video. This next one's perfect if you are very short on time or energy, because we're going to use a meat substitute that won't require any seasoning, and we're going to use a boxed rice pilaf. Remember that just because you're meal prepping, it doesn't mean everything needs to be made entirely from scratch. You can definitely leverage some pre-made ingredients to make your life easier, and it'll still overall probably be healthier and less expensive than picking up takeout, for example. There are lots of different brands of boxed rice pilaf to choose from. We have this garlic and herb one, which cost about $3. This is super low effort. You just need to heat up some water with a little bit of oil or vegan butter, add in the seasoning packet, and then add in the rice and steam it. I would imagine you could also prepare this in a rice cooker, though I haven't tried it myself. For our veggies this time around, I'm roasting a butternut squash that I just peeled and cubed up, and some Brussels sprouts that I quartered. Again, we're keeping it really simple in terms of preparation. I'm just tossing them with some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and I'm popping them in a 400-degree oven until everything is tender. And I just like to give the Brussels sprouts a toss a few times as they cook so that none of them get too dark in the oven. And for the protein this time, I have a container of the Impossible sausage. Usually we just wait for these to go on sale, and then we'll grab a few of them and pop them in our freezer just to have on hand. You could shape this into little meatballs and sear those off if you want, but to keep things easy, I just browned it in a skillet and served it as sausage crumbles. By now the pilaf is done, and I've let it sit for an additional 5 minutes or so before uncovering it and fluffing it up with a fork. And now it's time to divide everything up. This brand of pilaf contains 3 servings according to the box, but since we usually make these meal preps for lunch, I do smaller servings and I divide it into 4. And then a container of the Impossible sausage contains 7 servings. I usually weigh out 2 servings for each meal prep container for a total of 14 grams of protein. Then I add in my roasted vegetables, and that's it. This one was by far the easiest. I think it could be customized in many different ways just by substituting in different flavors of the boxed pilaf, different roasted veggies, and a different kind of plant-based meat. Like you could use vegan chicken style strips, or if you had a little extra time on your hands, you could make like a garlic and herb pan-fried tofu for a more homemade protein option. Alright, this next meal prep requires a little more effort than the other two, but it's still not too bad in my opinion. We're going to be making some Mexican red rice and beans along with fajita style soy curls and veggies. Let's get the red rice started first because it takes the longest. For that, we're going to need a small diced onion and a few cloves of minced garlic. Then you're going to heat up a tablespoon or so of olive oil, or really any kind of oil in a pan, and add in your onion and garlic along with some rice. I just use whatever medium or long grain rice I happen to have in my pantry. Once the rice starts to cook and it's been coated in the oil, it turns slightly transparent. I'm trying to show that here, but it's kind of hard to see through the camera, but you want to just cook it in the oil until it turns opaque, and that takes a few minutes stirring regularly. At this point, we add in a few tablespoons of tomato paste, and you're just going to stir until all the grains of rice are coated with that. And then you can pour in either water or vegetable broth. I actually like to use vegan chicken-style bouillon cubes. It makes the rice extra savory. You bring that mixture up to a boil, and then you reduce the heat to low, cover it, and let it simmer for around 25 to 30 minutes. Around the halfway point, I also like to add in some beans just to up the protein content of the meal overall. I used pinto beans this time. You just want to drain them and give them a really good rinse and shake off as much of the extra water as you can. I just put them on top of the rice, and then during the last 5 or so minutes of cooking, I like to kind of fold them in. Once the rice is done cooking, I let it sit for about 5 minutes or so, and then I go in and fluff it up with a fork. While the rice was cooking, I went ahead and did some prep work for the protein and veggies. So for our protein, we've got some soy curls. If you've never tried these before, I highly recommend them, especially if you enjoy vegan meat substitutes, but you're trying to save a little bit of money. These have a very meaty texture. They're pretty affordable. They're very high in protein and low in fat, and they're super versatile. They don't have much flavor on their own, but this makes them a great blank canvas for whatever spices or marinade you want to cook with. I have seen these at a few health food stores. If you have a natural grocers, you can check there. But generally, I think it's easiest just to order them online. You can get them on Amazon or directly from the Butler website. They come dry and you rehydrate them with boiling water. You just let them soak for about 10 minutes. Then you drain them. You're gonna let them cool off until they're safe to handle. And then you're gonna wring out as much of the extra water as you can. You can use a clean tea towel for this, or if you have a nut milk bag, that works well too. For this meal prep, I essentially just followed a recipe for chicken fajitas, so I added them into a hot cast iron with some oil. And to give them a kind of chickeny, savory flavor, I added 2 vegan chicken-style bouillon cubes, the same ones that I used in the red rice. I just added those in with a little bit of water to dissolve them, and then I tossed the soy curls in that. If you have a different vegan chicken-style seasoning, you can use that too, or just skip it all together and add the spices. I added chili powder, ground cumin, oregano, some paprika, and some garlic powder. If you have a little extra time and energy, I also have a carne asada style soy curl recipe that would be absolutely delicious for this meal prep, so I'll link that recipe down below if you are interested. But just to keep things simple for myself, I just seared the seasoned soy curls in the cast iron, and I set those aside to make room for our fajita veggies. You could cook the veggies along with the soy curls if you have a larger skillet, but I kept mine separate just to avoid overcrowding the pan. I kept it simple with just peppers and onions, but I also think some mushrooms or zucchini would be a really great addition to this meal prep concept. Not really much to this, I just stir-fried everything together for a few quick minutes. I love using my cast iron skillet for fajita veggies, and I prefer my bell peppers to stay nice and crisp, so I gave the onions a head start, and I really didn't cook them for too long at all. I just seasoned them with some salt and pepper. I think a large part of meal prep finally feeling sustainable for me is that I try to embrace simplicity when it comes to 1 or 2 of the components, and a lot of the time that means just salt and pepper on the veggies. And once again, it's time to divide all the components between our meal prep containers. The red rice and beans does make quite a bit, so I had extra beyond what I needed for the meal prep. Then just a quick tip if you are interested in tracking any of the nutrition for these meal preps and you're kind of new to that. To calculate the serving size for the soy curls, for example, I weigh out the entire batch in a large bowl, and then I divide that weight by the number of servings in the bag, in this case 8. What that gives you is the weight for a single serving, and then I multiply that by 2 because I was planning to put 2 servings of soy curls per each of my meal prep containers. And then you can tear or zero out your scale and just remove your desired amount to go into each container, and you just want to zero it out between each serving. And hopefully that makes sense. We actually wrote out a guide for these 3 meal preps on our website, and we'll link it down below if you need any further clarification on that. But it's of course not necessary at all to track this. I just like to track my protein intake specifically since I'm working out and I'm trying to gain strength currently. So that is it. Those are 3 of our current favorite easy vegan meal prep meals. Check the guide on our website below if you'd like to try out any of these for yourself. Make sure to subscribe for more plant-based recipes and meal preps like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye.